Philippe here, sorry. That'd be
Now
wonderful.
I'm really pleased to introduce Philippe Borremans live from Portugal. Phil presented at EMPA's Australian Conference in June, and he was such a hit that we had to make space to get him back with us here today. Philippe Borremans is an independent consultant with over 25 years of experience specialising in risk, crisis and emergency comms. He advises multinational companies and works with large public institutions, including the EU, the World Health Organization and the African Union. He develops training and designs simulations to improve crisis communication strategies. Phil also lectures at universities across Europe and North Africa. He's the author of a book, Mastering Crisis Communication with ChatGPT, a Practical Guide, and he edits the weekly newsletter, Wag the Dog, which reports on trends in risk, crisis and emergency comms. He began his career at IBM and Porto Novelli International, where he focused on corporate and crisis communications. It's fabulous to have him here. I'm mildly jealous he's in Portugal, despite Wellington's wonderful weather, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the introduction. Can someone tell me if the audio is fine? Can someone maybe wave in the room so I know that you're hearing me? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and what should I say? Good morning, probably. Yeah, here it's already very dark. Thank you for the introduction. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, even from that big distance. Yeah, my talk will be about the use of AI, but then specifically for crisis risk and emergency communications. Happy to take questions after, I think, the presentation. So let me see. First thing, I always start with a disclaimer when I talk about AI in the context of you will not copy paste and publish. Whatever I show here, don't try it. Well, you can try it, but don't copy paste the results and hit the publish button. It's always human in the loop when we talk about AI. I'll give you examples of AI can really speed up our work and even improve our work, but there's always a human in the loop to do the last check. You will ask more questions is not in the context of this presentation, but when you work with AI, it all starts and ends with the kind of questions you ask the system to do, and they need to be smart. And we'll talk a little bit about prompting. And then, of course, we'll not feed public AI systems confidential information. That is a no-go for, I think, everyone in the room, although we also have to be not very paranoid, because it's not so that if you put confidential information today in ChatGPT, it will appear tomorrow and the system will be immediately trained on that information. A lot of people think that's immediate. It's not at all the case. Your information gets split all over the place, and it's only in the next update that those little pieces will probably or possibly appear in the training. But so, disclaimer, and now let's maybe dive in. So AI, a lot of hype around AI for the last year. Since OpenAI launched ChatGPT, but it's not a new thing, right? So it's pretty old. In fact, Alan Turing put the groundwork, and then through a couple of other projects, breakthrough projects like the one from Rand Corporation in '56, and then IBM, and then Google in 2017. Those were the big steps for AI systems. Now, until then, those were systems with, if you were not in the business, you simply had no access to. And even if you were in the business, when I was working at IBM, you needed to be a computer engineer to actually really be able to work with these things. We've now seen that everything has evolved and that we now have direct access to very low cost, if not free AI systems. We can chat with them. We know that interface. It sounds very natural. And also we can now talk to these machines, which makes it even more easier. Also, I wanted to be specific when I talk about AI in this context here. I talk about GPT-4, generative pre-trained transformers, GPTs, LLMs, and that's where it stops. The other higher level systems is what runs these things. So whenever I say AI, it's in fact a limited, let's say, model of AI, the ones that we can access and work with. Now, yeah, my little guide was mentioned. It's very old now. It was published in February last year. So that's very, very old in AI world. So the examples in there are still valid. The principles are still valid. So what I'm going to talk about now in the first phase of this presentation, I mean, these principles are still applicable and mainly come from the book as well, although that today we can do much more than a year ago. I want to start with very basic use of AI in the context of our work. And then I'll move up and then I'll end with AI agents and things like that. But let's maybe first start with very basic approaches. So one of the things I did when I first had my hands on ChatGPT, as I said, more than a year ago, I simply invented a company called MBX, and I focused on one type of crisis, cyber attack, and I took that as a model to actually see what the AI system could do and how it could help me. So I kept that same, let's say, setting for the machine to see what it could do. And one of the first things I asked it to do, now this is a very small piece of the prompt, but was create a crisis communication response plan. This is what I got, and it's not really impressive. This is from a long time ago, as I said. But one thing that I found really interesting was that internal comms was there as the very first action that you do, apart from activating the crisis management team. I cannot tell you how many crisis and emergency plans I see every year as part of my job as a consultant. And not very often do I see internal comms there as one of the very first actions. Why we all know your organization, be it private sector or public sector, your first communication in the context of a crisis and emergency is internal comms. It's not that reactive statement. You first need to gather the troops, so to say, and inform everyone internally before you actually do a step outside. And that was for me a moment where I said, well, this system actually, and that is very biased, but actually confirms on what I strongly believe in. And that was an interesting find. So from there, I started going further into these interactions. Now, you know, or you might know that we have the European Union AI Act, very proud of that in the European Union. It is a very complex document. And of course, companies in the EU have just now a couple of months, I think, to really comply with these rules. And one of the things that is now very easy to do with AI is that you can actually have a chat with a EU AI Act GPT. And that shows you where we're coming from actually simply asking a question and getting text to a more bespoke, pre-trained GPT standalone with a clear objective. And that to me is where we're going with AI. We'll see more and more AIs developed with a clear objective for a very much vertical integration, and also in our area of what we do. This is interesting for organizations who really are looking at, well, what will this mean for us? And here, this is just a questioning about what the impact would be on crisis communication. So the implications for us in crisis comms or in emergency comms are clearly laid out there, and they are traceable, and you can go back to look at that. But just to show you how far we've come, and again, this is done by a single individual, right? It is the knowledge base is the full text of the EU AI regulation with all the amendments, etc. It is a good prompt, a good instruction design, but this is made by a simple human being that is probably a bit more versed in European law, but still it is possible to make that. Everyone there at the tables would be able to make something specific to his or her domain in probably half an hour time. Now, one of the things I regularly do and I love to do as part of my job as a consultant is setting up simulations. So from tabletops to full scales. And I really love the work of starting with crisis simulation design and then looking at, fine tuning that and then actually the rollout of that. What I did then is turn to again to AI and said, well, I've got a huge knowledge base on all these scenarios and all these methodologies and my own experiences. I can format that, give it to an AI system, and then instruct it to be my virtual support. And this is actually what I use to create, and coming back to my first disclaimer, my first draft of a crisis simulation blueprint that I will be able to fine tune and transparently work with clients with the system as well to come to a final design. But what the results that you're getting here is actually based on best practice, on a knowledge base, on experience, just virtualized, in fact. And this is my virtual sidekick whenever I start to run or design crisis scenarios. Again, very practical application of AI. It saves me time, it saves my clients time. This is actually one of the big advantages, of course, of AI, is that it does save us that resource that we never have enough of, which is time. We cannot create that. So that is one of those applications that definitely help in day-to-day work in simulation work. This is another one. This is more about, let's say, learning, training, capacity development. This one is available. I've published it openly in ChatGPT, so anyone who wants to try out the crisis role player can look it up later on or on your mobile phone and start doing that role play. But again, it's based on my work that I've done over the last 4 years in instructional design around crisis and emergency preparedness, communications then. And again, here it's a very simple way of interacting with a chat system. It will have you pick and choose an emergency of your choice, but then again, based on good practice and clear instructions, will be able to challenge you. And then at the end, if you play the whole way, it will give you also structured feedback on your interactions. So again, a very important area of our work, I think, is capacity building or training, education. This is something, again, that is rather easy to build if you have experience and you know what you're doing. But it is, again, one of those applications where AI can make a difference. Now, audience segmentation is another of these things where I'm very interested in and also work in. I'm one of these people who cringes when he sees the general public in one or the other crisis communication plan. There is no such thing as the general public. It's all audiences, different communities. And so segmenting those audiences is a very important part of the preparation. Now, whenever I work for government organizations, UN agencies, I have my backpack next to my office. I get the call and I get on a plane and then I get in an emergency area, and that could be all across the globe. So I've worked in West Africa, Central Asia, a bit everywhere. And I never know where I'm going. So one of the things that I now really use is Perplexity AI, which is just another AI system. But the advantage here is that it has access or has been trained on scientific databases and has a direct access to the web. Now, this was before other AI systems had direct access to the web. ChatGPT has that now as well. But what it allows me is to do a quick check. For instance, here, I think it's the emergency that I here, let's say, prepare myself for is forest fires in Colorado. And what I'm getting here is the demographics, psychographics, habits, briefings on languages spoken, on religions, and all these things. Those are the first things that I need, because when I land, I'm in a totally different environment than what I'm used to most of the time. And of course, when I'm there, I work with sociologists, anthropologists, and our local fixers. But this gives me already a first good idea of where I'm going to. And again, it helps with first level audience segmentation and research. Another thing then is writing. I think many people now have used AI systems to write whatever, key messages, reactive statements, full plans. One of the things that is interesting to see is that I hear a lot of, and that's mainly then people who have copywriting as a job, for instance. Well, AI cannot write as a human being. Well, sorry to say, but when you train an AI on previous examples, on tone and style, on levels of empathy, on key messages and key words that we know work for certain situations with certain populations, then it will return you a text, again, first draft, that is very to the point of what you would be needing. And we've seen studies coming out, especially on the point of empathy, where certain pre-built, pre-instructed, not general AI systems, but pre-built for that intent. In fact, when they interact with humans, the humans tell the researchers that the AI system had much more empathy than the real humans that they were confronted with. And this is about medical environment where people talk about their illnesses, something very personal. So we are able to create AI systems which show that level. But again, it's not because they suddenly become empathic, it's because we train them in that area. Another interesting area is key message development. So again, if you really look at your environment, you give the AI system the correct context, the correct audience definition, and your best practice in creating key messages, the system will be able to fully support you in that. And it's all about not starting with a blank page. Now, that is always wrong. We should have these things ready for all the risks and emergencies that we've already predefined and mapped out. But still, when you're in the middle of something and you actually need to switch gears and look for new key messages and new information that you can publish, AI can help. Again, as a first draft, human in the loop. Media relations, red teaming, very interesting approach as well, because there we all know that it's one of those things. If you know your spokesperson, it's one of the hardest jobs, and having been in that place with a camera in front or cameras in front of me during the emergency, I know how stressful it can be. So good preparation of spokespeople and prepping them on difficult questions can also be done with AI. Here I'm using another system. This is Claude, but I ask it to play the role of a top investigative journalist. And if you look at the instruction there, it's not just a single line. I give context and then I go on in the discussion, giving even more information. But the questions that you get then are some of the toughest questions that you could get in an emergency situation. I don't know which one. Oh, earthquake. Yeah, this was an earthquake scenario where the order to evacuate came too late or late. And that is simulating now the questions of an investigative journalist. And you'll see when the questions pop up, if you can look at the discussion. I don't know how big the screen is in the room. But those are very realistic questions. I mean, I had those type of questions in my profession. And so that can help you prepare your spokesperson as well. So this is just another area of where AI can work. Now, I showed you Claude. Udly is a platform which is in fact purpose-built to do that. So this is a platform which uses AI to prepare people and coach people in preparing for a conference presentation, a TV appearance, or a media interview. And what here the system does, it will not only analyze what you say and give you feedback, but it will also look at your filler words, your stop words, and then soon probably will also look at your facial expression and give you feedback on that as well. So what I said, we will see vertical integrated purpose-built AI systems for a very specific area. In this case, prepping people for a public appearance or a conference. SOPs, also an interesting area. For SOPs, this is just a standard operating procedure table for a government emergency management agency responsible for forest fires. And what it gives me is an operational overview, and then I can continue chatting about those SOPs. This is another way of using AI, and I like that a lot. It's not just asking to do something for us, it's also challenging me. as any kind of specialist, you're in your bubble and you start to develop your own, bias. And so I like to use AI to also challenge my work. So asking it, find the gaps in my thinking, find the gaps in this plan, critique it, give feedback on that. And again, that's an interesting way of interacting with the system, as long, of course, as you give it a knowledge base that is correct, either science or your own knowledge or your own best practice based on your own experience. But it's another way of interacting with the system, which I find very interesting, because we always like into that same thing with the methodologies and what have you. And it's also good to have, in this case, then a virtual buddy to take a step back and shoot holes in your plan, as we say. So that's good. This is a crisis communication plan creator. This is actually one of my virtual buddies, assistants, as I call them. This is purpose built for me. And this is an AI that helps me, again, not starting with a blank page. It's only based on my experience, after action reports, my own plans that I've written over the years, and then methodologies and things like that. I update it on a regular basis, but it helps me to go through the logical thinking and see it appear on my screen, and then from there fine-tune, draft, and again, together with clients, look at the crisis communication plan to get to a final version. But it's great to kick off discussions. It is in a format that everybody understands. It is according to best practice. It's based on a knowledge base. Again, a virtual sidekick which saves a lot of time, but which doesn't hallucinate because it's been pre-trained and it's been purpose-built and instructed. So a couple of examples how AI can be used in crisis comms and emergency comms. There are challenges, definitely, and you all know them. Data bias. Now, data bias, I'm always amazed that people are surprised that AI systems have a data bias. Well, it's pretty logical because they've been pre-trained on knowledge and data made by humans, and we're all biased. All of us in the room, when it comes about around communication, we have 42, I think, or 43 biases going on in our head all the time. So it's normal that an AI system is biased. Now, the solution is there. I mean, a lot of these big enterprises, OpenAI and the others, Google, etc., are working on getting that bias minimized and reduced. And what are they using to do that? Well, they're using AI to do that. So it is a problem, but it's also a solution technology. So it helps reduce the biases. And they are, all of them, I think, doing a very good job on reducing that. Now, you still have surprises. You still have very clear biases sometimes. Mostly, I think, in image graphic generation. But the bigger players in the market are working on that. Yes, it is dependent on pre-training. So every single time that there is an update that is based on pre-training, it goes back a couple of years, but we'll see that cycle going probably much faster with more up-to-date data for training. And we also see that most models now have a direct access to the World Wide Web, which is not also always quality knowledge, but still that is good for research and news and actualities. Ethical questions, definitely. And I think, and it's not because I'm European, but the EU AI Act is not only a list of you shall not and you shall not, or you have to. It also is asking a couple of ethical questions, which is interesting, and it does give a kind of guidance. And soon, within the EU at least, for certain AI applications, you will have to label your content in any kind of formal format, that it's been either AI created or co-created with AI. And I think that's a very good way to go. Full transparency, I think, is the best way to go when you look at the use of AI, and also in our environment. My newsletter is co-created with AI, and you know that when you sign up. I have no issue with telling people what you read is co-created with AI. I'm still the human in the loop, the final editor, but and one of the things, of course, one of the big questions that we have is what happens to the trust level, trust perception with your communities that you try to reach, affected populations, when the message that you're sending says, co-created or created by AI. Good news, there is a research project underway in the US and in the EU, in Europe, where we're going to look at specifically that. It's together with the crisis communication think tank out of the US, just received some funding. So we're going to do research around that. What is the value, the trust level of a message when it's clearly labeled co-created or created by AI? Will that have the same trust level or not? The question is out there. There's no definite answer for the moment. But research is on the way, and we'll see that. It's just one of those questions that we're asking, but it's interesting field to continue working in. And then data security, definitely. I mean, coming back to my first slide, you will not, give confidential information to a publicly available AI system. Any client I work with, there is just one thing that I'm telling them: look, if you're really serious about AI, then you install one of the best-in-class open source AI large language models. There's so many to choose from, and from everywhere. I mean, there's a very strong one called Mistral from France. You can do that through OpenAI, the company, as well. Put the system on your own servers, behind your firewall. You tweak it, you train it with your own knowledge database, and then that should at least increase the data level, the data security level, up to your own organization's security levels. And I think if an organization is really serious about that, that is the only way to go, where you have full control over the system. Now, before I end, I wanted to show you a couple of things, just two. And the slide says future of AI, but I'm showing them to you. So they actually are already in use, although they're in alpha and in beta stage. But it's already something that I at least can work with. So it's not so futuristic, but I'll start with virtual audiences and talk about AI agents. One thing that I wanted to tell you is that if you look at our crisis flow, emergency flow, I can see applications for AI in every single phase. Risk assessment, predictive analytics is driven by AI, communication and coordination. I've just showed you a couple of examples: real-time monitoring and alerts, early warnings, etc., etc. I think in every single phase here, we will be able to find very specific applications for AI. And the next two ones are what I can show you, what I think will change the way that we do our job as communicators. So what you're seeing here is what we call synthetic or virtual audiences. So imagine that you have a segment of your audience, a specific community in mind that you want to reach. What we can do now, if and when we have demographics, psychographics, gap survey results, all that information of that specific segment, we can now virtualize that and actually interact with that virtualized representative of that community. What you're seeing here is Michael and Sarah. Michael and Sarah, male, female, represent a specific community, a segmented audience. We've virtualized them, and what I can now do is ask Sarah and Michael what they would think about the key messages that we're developing, what they would think about the first alerts that we think of sending out in the context of an evacuation order. We can ask them how they would feel, feelings, not just how they would behave. We can actually ask all these questions to these virtualized audiences, or personas, as you could call them. Now, a lot of people, when they see this, they go like, yeah, but how trustworthy is that? Well, we're up to almost 80% of similarity between the human version and the virtualized version. And so imagine that we go up to 90%. We'll never get to 100%. I mean, in real life, you never get to 100%. But imagine that we go up to 90%. That will actually allow us to test all those messages for different audiences and get actual feedback before we have to use them. We can tweak, adapt them. And this will be able to take into account all the psychographics, all the demographics, all the religious background, the cultural background, all these things that we need to be aware of when we create messages. And not only for messages, we can actually ask them what their feelings would be in certain situations, etc., etc. So that is, I think, for me, an area that will be very interesting for us as communicators, because at the end of the day, we work with people and we want to know exactly if what we're communicating will resonate or not. And then the other one is AI agents, and that is just I think a logical evolution of the more, let's say, the technological part. What you're seeing here are in fact a couple of AI agents. So the black boxes are AI agents. Think of it as independent small AI entities. On the left side, I think it's the left side, at least for me it is, here, you see part of my very long prompt where I'm asking the collective of AI agents to do something for me. In this case, it's creating a crisis simulation for a storm in Illinois, very specific. And all these black boxes, all these small AI entities are now taking that big job apart, and each of them concentrate on pieces of the work. So the ones that get the done here, they have finished their little piece of work, and then the other one is still running and the other ones are pending. They haven't started yet. On the right side, you see each activity happening in real time. The good thing is that these AI agents, these little small boxes, they understand each other, they communicate with each other, so there's no overlap, there's no double work or what have you. And it speeds up a big piece of work, a big chunk of work in little AI agents that then start to work and bring everything back together in the end. As you see also here on the left side, I haven't put in data sources. This was just to do a test run. What I would do is, again, upload a knowledge base specific to that objective, so that the AI collective there, the different AI agents, would only use the knowledge base that I have specified. You could, that could be a collection of after action reports if you want to go in that area. There could be previous plans, it could be what have you. And here you have then a crisis communication simulation exercise scenario for a hurricane in Illinois. It starts with media outlets and community organizations, so your stakeholder mapping, and then it goes on into the scenario and what have you. So that is a view of how AI agents are working today and how we can look at scaling up that AI power by bringing these different AI agents together. Again, I've done this. I am not an IT expert. I cannot code one single digit. You know, it's a little bit of investment of time, bit of a learning curve, but we can all start doing this as long as we learn how to prompt. And that is the basis of working with AI. Really, everyone in the room, if you want to do anything with AI, start to learn how to prompt. There are different frameworks depending on what you want to achieve, but that is the best investment of your time, I think, for the moment, if you are serious about working with AI. So I hope I gave you a bit of an overview, starting from basic stuff and then going all the way up to simulation, plan creation, and now then virtual audiences, and then here the little agents working on a plan for me. Again, first draft, never use it as such. And I'm always ending with this picture. This is a picture I took when I was shipped out to West Africa in the context of Ebola. And you know, how we can have all the bells and whistles, all the technology. And again, I'm an ex-IBMer. I love technology. I think that's pretty clear. But you know, when you work in these areas, and maybe some of you have, and it starts to rain, your internet connection is not there, your technology is not there. And at the end of the day, that makes me always think, and I take this with me all the time, it is first and foremost about the audiences, the people that we try to save or help. And later on, anything that can help us do that is fine. But let's, from time to time, stand still, think about what is the most important thing are these audiences, and maybe not all the bells and whistles that I just showed you. So it's not what you want to tell them, it's what they can hear. And I think that's one of the most important things I've ever read. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't know if this is working. Has anyone got any questions?
I'm back.
Kia ora, hello. I just wondered, you talked about learning how to prompt, and maybe I missed it at the beginning, but whereabouts is it AI that we go to learn how to prompt AI?
Yeah, well, that is an approach because you've got good, let's say, GPTs, for instance, in ChatGPT, which can actually learn you how to prompt. There's a couple of platforms, again, driven by AI, which will improve your prompts as well. The best thing to do is, and this might seems very trivial, but go to YouTube. There are a lot of people who create incredible training sessions about the different frameworks used by AI. And of course, when I do workshops, I spend a lot of time teaching people that as well. But you will find a lot of information on the web, good information, because it's pretty structured. There is no, I mean, there's not like 100 zillion ways to do good prompting. So you will find that information on YouTube. There are a couple of people who really have long sessions on, you know, splitting up those prompts, actually telling you this is this framework, this is this framework. So that information is rather easy to find, but it's definitely worth investing time in looking at that, because the better your prompt, the better your output. It's very simple with AI systems nowadays. Yeah. What I can do though is send just a list with a couple of links and resources after my presentation, and I can send that and then probably it will be shared with the delegates in the room. That's maybe the easiest thing.
Wonderful, thank you. We've got another question over here.
Philippe, thank you for your presentation. Just a question about the AI agents. Are they each a different persona, or what are they each made of?
Yeah.
You know, and what do they entail?
Yeah, so in this case, they are more focused. So what they do is they look at the overall objective and then they split the work among each other, and they are not specifically persona trained. But that is another approach to creating AI agents. You could have an AI agent which is a pre-trained copywriter, and another AI agent which is a pre-trained infographic maker, and another one. So you could think. But you know, that is another way of thinking about AI agents. The example I showed you was simply the tasks, right? They split up the tasks. Say, okay, I do this, you do that, you do that, and we coordinate the work. And at the end, we give you all the the results. But AI agents can be professional, can be described professionally. So you could have a crisis communications AI agent and an emergency operations AI agents. You could have that. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, last question, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, good. AI is incredible. It does so much that takes, and the idea or the practice is that it gives us time to do other things. So if we're looking at things that AI is not good at and that we can invest in because that's the thing that humans can do really well, what are your thoughts around that? I'm sure you think about it all the time.
Yeah, I think the technology will of course increase and become smarter, but still today it all starts with the human being able to interact with the system. That's the prompting part and what have you. Also the human knowing exactly what he or she wants from the AI system, because you have people who just sit there and start chatting with the thing and we don't really know where we're going. So you have a very clear idea of what you want out of it. And then the other thing that humans can do to improve AI is looking at knowledge and data sets. What do we have? If tomorrow you want to use AI seriously within your organization, you really have to look at what do we have in-house? What do we have? How is our knowledge organized? Do we have a knowledge management ID in the organization, or it's scattered all over? So the best preparation that you can do is really looking at your knowledge, your databases, your best practices or your good practices, all that information, because that is what you will use to pre-train your own AI system. And the rest is following the technological development. But it's still the human input, either the huge knowledge base, the training requirements, and then the ability to prompt, and then the ability to orchestrate the system. Because the system as such, it does a couple of funky things, but that is not what we're looking at. We're looking at something that will support our work before, during, and after emergencies. So it's really up on us to really look at, do we actually understand our SOPs? Do we actually have most of our stuff in template format? Do we actually have frameworks that we trust, that we know work? Do we have a knowledge base? And then the second thing is, do we actually know how to interact with AI systems to get the best out of them, which is prompting?
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Phil. It's been amazing to hear from you today, and a lot of food for thought and lots to learn. Thanks so much.
Thank you.